as kind of a home for these sessions. For tonight, there is a signature cocktail available as well. It's $10 daiquiri night at the Drake on every Tuesday night, and it's half-price bottles of wine every Tuesday night as well. So these are the libation choices that are kind of special prices. Next week, we have a session on income tax for the service industry, and I think it's really timely. I think it's a great idea. That idea is kind of the brainchild of Gord Hanna and Donnie Wheeler, and there's going to be a tax expert here who will be able to answer a lot of questions that you may have around your income tax, and very timely, I think. And for tonight, we have Ian Griffith. Thank you, Ian, for coming. He's from Australia originally.
Yeah.
Born near Brisbane, but not in Brisbane.
Yep.
Started bartending in Brisbane at 18.
You did your research.
Moved on to Melbourne, then moved on to Sydney, then crossed some ocean.
A few of them.
Probably not the Atlantic.
No.
To get to Edinburgh, where he worked at Bramble, which is where you met Ryan, Chetty-O'Organa.
Ooh, took a stab at the last name. Good.
And I did okay.
Yeah, you did okay. You did all right. To be fair, there's a story where his sister called him once and left a voicemail where it's like, Ryan, you don't know how to say your own last name, and that's a problem. And hung up. At the end of it, yeah.
That's wonderful.
Apparently,
so that lets the rest of us off the hook.
Exactly. You're all good.
Yeah. And then, of course, they went down to London, where they opened up first White Lion, and then Dandelyan, which has gone on to become one of the most famous bars in the entire world, and to great acclaim. And so we're really thrilled you're here tonight. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Andrew. Cheers. Hey guys, so yeah, as Andrew said, thank you so much. Thank you for that lovely introduction. Thank you so much to the Drake, John and Gord for hosting this. This is really something wonderful to see. Of all the bar communities I've had the opportunity to visit over the years, it's amazing to see something that just constantly and regularly delivers really good and great quality content to the community. I am going to talk today about this bar. As Andrew alluded, I'm Australian born, and yeah, I met Ryan Chetty when I moved to Edinburgh. And yeah, we started a company called The Lion Company, which has done a number of different things over the year. Actually, Ryan just posted today, it's 6 years today since we looked for what became White Lion. And it's been a really, really interesting journey. I'm going to focus on Dandelyan, and for those of you that might not have seen, I posted on OBC yesterday. This will be completely open for anyone that might be watching at home that wants to message in a question. There is really nothing about Dandelyan that's off limits for a number of reasons. One, we always try to be pretty honest and transparent at the best of the times. Second of all, we're closing it soon, and nothing like a closure really gets everybody reminiscing and offering throwbacks and all the rest of it. So yeah, we're gonna go into it all. I'm gonna work on the assumption that everybody in the room has never been to any Lion bar ever and never even heard of us. But if I skip over anything, just please throw your hand up and ask. So Ryan and I met when I was running Bramble, and he had worked there for a period of time. And we came to, we just got along very well instantly. And he, to this day, is still one of my best friends in the world. And something that we got along about, which might seem kind of weird, but we actually got along first and foremost because of our frustrations. We were at a point in time, it was 2011, 2012, and we were both at very, very different points in our career. Ryan was, Mr. Lion was really starting to get its own brand and its own reputation, and he was really starting to become well known. And I was still an incredibly angry bartender that drank way too much. And that was honestly where I was at in Edinburgh at that point in time. But one of the things we were incredibly frustrated about in 2012 was the numerous articles being written about how bartenders need to stop taking themselves so seriously and remember it's about the guest first and foremost. It's all about the guest. It's all about hospitality again and again and again. And every single person that wrote one of these articles either already owned or went on to open up a bar that operated the exact same as every other bar in existence. And we were like, this is fucking ridiculous. Guests don't want to wait 15 minutes for cocktails. If it's truly about the guest, why are we not finding a way to speed this all up? And so we went on to open a bar called White Lion, which, now that we've closed it, I will say was the most talked about bar that nobody ever went to. And if you did go there, thank you. White Lion was a no ice, no fresh produce cocktail bar on the arse end of the only street in East London that isn't gentrified, because of course we managed to pick that. You can see it's incredibly austere. It was monochrome. The Pinterest board for the interior was literally labeled 70s cocaine den. We wanted to do something that was like, we put an entire mirror along the front of the bar. Horrible idea, by the way. First of all, drunk people are going to kick it and it's going to shatter. Second of all, it's going to catch up all that light that's going to the floor to be absorbed and throw it back up into the room. Shithouse idea. Never do that. But we really wanted to do a bar that just caused change in the industry wherever possible. It wasn't about being different for the sake of being different. It was about being different because we truly wanted to see some change. It felt like in 2012 the industry had plateaued a little bit, and there were a lot of people that were just going, cool, this is us, we're good. And I don't believe in change for the sake of change, but I do believe that most things in the world still have a lot of room to be refined along the way. So we got into this bar called White Lion. It still gives me PTSD in so many different ways. We did a million and one different things. This drink here is a Sazerac that we infused with ambergris, which is the byproduct of whales, and mostly used in perfumery as a congener. And we infused that into our own spirits because we made everything ourselves, our own gin, vodka, rum, rye, bourbon, scotch, aquavit. We infused it into our own rye whiskey and then batched a Sazerac, and we would take a frozen rocks glass from the freezers installed underneath the bench there, put them onto a set of coffee scales, because if you jiggered you'd have a heat transfer, so we had to measure everything by weight, and so you then had to put it on a pair of coffee scales. We poured the Sazerac and then we did an absinthe sprayed rice paper and dropped that into the drink, and that was our Sazerac. And on the night Beyonce visited, she drank 9 of them, so we think that one gets a fucking thumbs up. But you know, I was really sick of seeing some bars spend so much money on menus, which sounds ironic for the bar I'm about to talk about, but so we tried to find the cheapest version of a menu we could, and I realized one of the cheapest household items that everyone has every day is toilet paper. So we designed a toilet paper menu that we hung from the ceiling. These menus cost 4 pence. 8 Canadian cents per menu, because we bought 500 of the fuckers at a time and then hung them on a very large toilet roll in the middle of the bar, and we tore them off for order. I swear a lot, by the way, so if you're offended, leave now. We used an enigmatic wine system to do more room temperature cocktails, starting to explore how spirits would actually present themselves with everything in there except the temperature aspect of it. That was mixed results. We needed drinks that were still agitated. Oh, I forgot we did that. So this is a spindle mixer, and we worked with soy lecithin and stabilized that into any of our drinks that we wanted a frothy egg white-esque head on, and we actually banged them in the spindle mixer before we served them out to people. This failed horribly. Never do this. This is like an auto boiler coffee maker kind of thing, and we tried to do this random Swedish drink, and we put aquavit in the back of it, and it caught on fire on the 3rd serve. Don't put alcohol in things that heat up. It's a really bad idea. But we did White Lion, and it struck a chord with the industry. As many people hated it, which is to their own volition, there were a lot of people that could see the purpose behind it all, even if it was a uncomfortable, weird kind of bar. And I'm openly bi, and a lot of my family are drag queens, and so on a Saturday night, a lot of them had come down and treat it as their warm-up bar, and so you'd have everyone there sipping a lovely cocktail, and then all of a sudden an amazing queen called Uzun Galup, who mostly works with a green face paint to start everything off with, would suddenly be sliding across the bar in a fucking jock strap, and it was a weird bar, but it was a fucking awesome bar as well. But we created White Lion to strike this change in the industry. And very thankfully, around the time we created White Lion, we actually opened 2 bars in the same week. We opened White Lion in East London, and we opened Henry in the Morgan's Hotel in New York City. And the people that went to Morgan's that can remember Henry will remember it was actually the trial, the R&D of Dandelyan. Because we were like, we have this idea, and we think it will work. And Morgan's had approached us to want to do a bar. They'd approached Ryan specifically, actually. Alan, who'd been head of marketing there, had known Ryan for a number of years. And they'd always wanted to do something with Ryan. So they offered him this space in New York, and then we formed the company and blah, blah, blah. And Henry was the beginning of what Dandelyan would become, which was looking at how we could take the conversations around how we talk about plants and see if we could apply that in a manner that made cocktails really exciting and interesting as well. We didn't have modern botany. We didn't have the what I think Dandelion is an incredibly intelligent name. The first time I heard that, I was like, yes, fuck yes, we're good. We're good on the name. And so, yeah, we started with White Lion, and it was really funny as well because we were having like these corporate people from the hotel group come into White Lion, and like these are people that are on like 6-figure plus salaries, and they've got to go down this street in East London where they're worried they're about to get fucking knifed at any point in time. She became my mentor, but the F&B director at the time, Ellie Jafari, the first time she was meant to come to White Lion, she made the cab turn around and went back to the hotel and called me. I was like, where the fuck is your bar located? I'm never coming there. I was like, the second time she got that drunk, she tried to take my shirt off. So, you know, yin and yang of everything. But yeah, so we had everyone, we kept trying to bring people to White Lion and convince them that we knew how to make this space work as well. And they were skeptical, but a huge credit to Ellie Jafari, Alan, Tin Ho. They put a lot of faith in Ryan and myself to be like, no, these guys will get it done. And so 1 week after we opened White Lion, Ryan signed the contract for us to open Dandelyan. So we knew from the beginning, we both loved to be busy, and we knew it was going to be nuts, but we weren't quite ready for it to be that nuts. At that point in time, Dandelyan was going to open in April as well. So we had 6 months to open a hotel bar. And so we opened this gorgeous bar. Some fun facts that I really love about this bar. All this marble weighs 4 tons, and it had to be swung in from the River Thames through the 4th floor and then dropped into the bar. It's so heavy they didn't even bother to seal it, which was a great idea until the plumber turned a pipe the wrong direction one day and water started spurting out under the bar a day before we opened. We're playing in a hotel, so the investors that bought the hotel reportedly, I've never had the balls to ask them, bought it for £360 million cash in 2008, and they spent the best part of a decade building it. The building was actually built in the 70s by an architect that's quite well known called Warren Platner, and he designed it to be a hotel. Shortly after he got near completion, a rather unenjoyable human being known as Margaret Thatcher came into power in Britain, and very quickly did a number of things that saw that he went bankrupt, left the UK, and she decided to take over that building and turn it into a customs excise building. And so the building's called Sea Containers because during the 80s it was used as the shipping, customs and excise building. What is now known as Law Hospitality Group bought it in 2008. And what we're playing with here, and this is only 50% of the footprint of the whole building, is 359 hotel rooms. We have a 120-seat cocktail bar. We have a 270-seat restaurant that's open from 6 a.m. until midnight, 7 days a week. We have a rooftop bar that holds 350 people. We have a cinema. We have a spa. The idea was, like, there is literally a cinema, a 50-person cinema. The idea was you could come to the Mondrian in London, as it was known when it opened, and you could spend 48 hours there and never have to leave. And so we had to figure out a bar that could be as aspirational as we wanted it to be, and at the same time please everybody, because for those of you that have never worked a hotel bar before, you have to please everyone. You have to please the 70-year-old wearing pearls and loving life, and you have to also find a way to please the 22-year-old that is understandably outraged at how fucking expensive your drinks are. You've got to find that balance everywhere in there. And so we set about creating Dandelyan. We gave it the strapline modern botany when we didn't really know what that meant. We were actually working a GQ event 10 days before we opened. And someone was like, so what is modern botany? And we're like, we don't really know yet. And they're like, what? We're like, it's to do with flowers and shit. We just haven't figured out really how to pitch it yet. But whatever, it's getting there, it's getting there. And I never got this woman's name, but she just turned around and she was like, oh, it's like nose to tail, but for plant life. And like, I nearly leapt over the bar and made out with her there and then. I was like, oh my God. Like, and that was it. And that kind of speaks to how Ryan and I do things a lot of the time, which is we put a lot of faith in our vision and what we're aspiring to do, but we also have this amazing network around us, and we always kind of believe in pushing forward, and everything will work itself out, which eventually it does. But that kind of seeds into the next aspect that I kind of wanted to touch on, which is that there's obviously been a lot of very nice things said about Dandelyan over the years and that kind of thing. But anyone reading that could very quickly assume that these guys just got it right from the beginning. And we did not. Dandelyan sucked when it first opened. I've gone on record and said that before, so that's not a shock. I publicly said when we won our first Tales Award that we didn't deserve to win it. We got a lot of things wrong. We overcommitted ourselves. We spread ourselves too thin. We hired people that were simply not right for that job. They're fantastic hospitality professionals that have gone on to achieve great things in the industry, but we did not have the vision and we did not have the understanding on how to run a company. And we got lucky being given this fucking gorgeous space and a management team that was patient with us while we figured out how to be bar openers. But for anyone in the room or anyone watching, it was a shit show. It was the worst thing in the world. It was to the point where at Christmas of the first year we were open, I was genuinely embarrassed to walk into our own bar. We had such a bad structure in place that management didn't know how to order menus, and so there were 3 days that Dandelyan was trading during the holiday period where we didn't even have menus. And I'm going to show you the menus in a second, but they're really fucking important for our concept. We had no contact with the staff. I had not really understood just how important culture was to the company. We had drinks that were crap. We had drinks that were confusing. But we also had some really stellar drinks on there as well that to this day are still served in the venue. One of them being the Koji Hard Shake that we're going to do something very fun with at the closing party. But it wasn't easy. It was truly one of those times where we had to spend a lot of time being like, well, what the fuck are we doing with this bar? We had plucked numbers out of the air for our budget, because we got given a figure that 4.5 million people walk through the front of our building every single year, because it's the single largest tourist strip in the world besides somewhere in Paris. And so we just started plucking numbers. We didn't do the competitor analysis. We didn't do the research. We didn't ask people to just, hey, have a look at our P&L. Does this look accurate in any way, shape, or form? Which is a really easy thing to do, but we didn't. And we got it wrong. And I blame nobody more than I blame myself and Ryan for how unenjoyable a lot of aspects of Dandelyan were. Because there's a real thing with ownership as well, where whether the venue's good or bad, or whether the staff are the most acclaimed bartenders in the world, or they're still figuring out how to jigger properly, there's this need to find pride in what you're doing that is true in all of us, and particularly when it comes time when you stake your name against a venue. And we had no pride in it all. So we opened on, because we seem to really like stacking things up, we opened on White Line's first birthday, White Line's September 26th. We opened officially on October 1st with Dandelyan. And we just pushed and we started trying to figure it all out. There were numerous aspects that we've since gone on to, but I feel it's always important to highlight what was a mistake so that people don't assume that it was just like that from the beginning. Things like, so we're doing a 24-drink cocktail menu in this huge hotel bar with all these people walking past the front door. And we hadn't figured out how to rotor properly to allow the staff to prep for it. It was just a really simple thing where Ryan and I were so used to at White Line, it was so fucking DIY, it's not even funny. And we were just so used to like cowboying shit and winging it, because it was literally 4 staff and the other 2 were our best friends, and we were like, yeah, that should work, and if it didn't work we just took it out and fixed it again. You can't do that. When you open for service you have to be ready. We had floor staff who were in tears every day. We had bartenders that didn't want to come into work, and it reached a breaking point. It truly did. We got to, I think we made it as far as May, and that is to say we probably should have pulled up stumps in January, but we made it as far as May, and we had a sit down. And there wasn't a real aspect of it that was working. The partnership with the higher ups was not right for us either. There was no way we were ever going to make any money off it. The staff morale was obviously horrible. The drinks were landing really well, but we have a real belief that in this was 2014, but we've always believed it, that any arsehole can throw liquor in a glass and call it a cocktail in this day and age. But if you're truly going to do something that's going to create a shift and create a change, the first and last thought shouldn't be the cocktail. The cocktail should just occur in the journey along the way. We didn't want to have a venue where we hung our hat on our drinks. We wanted to have a venue where we hung our hat on the experience. And we did not have that. So we figuratively burned shit to the ground. Any staff that were unhappy, we just gave them a, hey, just go. It's all good. Like, this hasn't worked, it's okay. And again, as I said, I blame no one for that more than myself. In the middle of all these issues, we tried to thumb through our second menu, which only kind of compounded every issue we were having. Imagine trying to flip a menu that costs between 12 and 25,000 pounds to produce. Imagine trying to flip that and having that financial pressure on everyone in a bar that's busier than anyone can keep up with no structure. We made, if there is a mistake as a small business owner that you can make, there's a good chance that we did it. And so we started in May gutting it all. We just started being like, yo, like, this is gonna be the hottest summer on record in the UK, and it was like the second hottest. We are gonna drop in sales. We also we haven't built a return clientele yet. So this is gonna be a pretty quiet summer. This is a good time for us to just go through a transition and get everyone that wants to move on, moving on. And so for a bar that seats 120 people, by the time everyone left, and that was the other thing. I decided that we weren't gonna hire anyone new until we knew who we had left actually with us. So we took our staffing levels for a bar that's open 3 days a week, 7 nights a week in this hotel. We took our staffing levels back to 9 people. But they were the 9 people that were outrageously committed. And the likes of Aidan Bowie, Jenny Willing, they didn't even bat an eyelid. They put faith in it, and I still owe them such a debt of gratitude for it all. And so we started rebuilding again. And we built from the ground up. And we built the team first based on personality. I didn't read a single CV. And then we started putting a menu structure in place. But in building that team up, I learned a hell of a lot about the importance of culture and how ultimately everything comes from your staffing culture at the end of the day. We got a better financial arrangement in place. We actually got a fucking budget that we had a snowflake's chance in hell of hitting anytime soon. And so we started building and we started growing. And that is where we came to using our menus. So a lot of people, for some reason, some people like to give a shit for it, but a lot of people know that we hang a lot on our menus. We always have done. But it's only once you hear the story you realize the reason we put so much into our menus. We put so much into them because the menus are what literally hold our team together. So we were at this bottom level point. We'd gone from 9 staff, and then we started finding some really amazing talent that was in London, and there wasn't a person I interviewed between between May and August, September, when I would say we started to be back at our right staffing level. There wasn't a person we interviewed that wasn't aware of just how fucking bad the culture was in Dandelyan. Like, everyone knew about it. That's why, another reason, there's no point ever trying to hide this shit. Everyone knew about it. Dandelyan, as one of 5 departments in the hotel, was nicknamed Slytherin by the other departments in the hotel. That's how fucking bad it was, right? I still remember the first time I heard it, and I was just like, I don't know what to do with that. I literally do not possess the tools to process that or work forward from it. So we got out there and we started looking for personality. Talent was irrelevant. We had the likes of Liam O'Neill, who was a barback for us that had been hired about 3 months in, but we knew he wanted to be more. So we got him through into bartending. We had Mikey Ball came on board. We had someone I'm sure you're all pretty familiar with, Kelsey Ramage, moved to London, and she got a job there pretty quickly. Smoked everybody in a speed rack competition, and Ryan was judging. So yeah, I was the barback. We got, the list goes on and on. Lorenzo Antinori, who's now head of Asia Pacific Four Seasons Hotels beverage programs. Like, we had all these people, and we said to all of them, we're like, do not come here expecting glory. Do not come here expecting this is going to be easy. We're ground zero of something we're incredibly unhappy with right now, and we're going to build it again. And it was around this time I was like, how are we going to get everyone together? How are we going to get everyone on the same page? And I developed this thing that has become affectionately known as the reverse pyramid scheme within the company. And the reverse pyramid scheme was something that I positioned as a way for everybody to contribute to the menu. How do you have ownership in a large-scale hotel with a corporate company owning it, with somebody as well known as Ryan as the face of it all? How, as a bartender, do you go there and have any ownership over a space when there's so many other people saying it's mine, it's mine, it's mine? And so the menu development process was what I figured out was going to be the way that we were going to empower everybody to take some control over this venue. Make Dandelyan everyone's bar at the same time. So the way the reverse pyramid scheme works is Ryan and I sit down and we decide that what's going to be the direction for the next menu. So for this one, our third menu that we released, that I would argue is probably our most famous, popular menu, that one was based in how man interacts with botany. Okay, and that was all we did. We sat down with staff and we did a 45-minute briefing where we were like, cool, so the next menu is going to go like this. And we want to explore how man interacts with botany. And we're going to give you a couple of our menus were always broken up into sections. And so we gave them sections like shaman, where it's like, take the idea of shaman and run with it in any direction you can, right? Or explorer, or hunter. And how has mankind affected botany and botany affected mankind? So we give you the concept and you go away and you can research anything you want. We encourage you to go down 2 a.m. Wikipedia black holes. And because from those black holes, you're going to find stories. You're going to come back and say, hey, it's really interesting. This is actually how they discovered LSD. Or you're going to come back and go, the shamans used to have a story based in the history of cacao and banana and how they actually played a pivotal role alongside of each other in this one part of South America. And so from those stories, we're going to find inspiration. And we're going to go, okay, like, this is a fucking story. There could be a drink here, right? And so by the time we get to the story mark, we're about 6 weeks into a 9-month process. We then spend the next month going from story into a clearly defined, this is your inspiration. And so then we're into the inspiration part of it all. And it's at this point in time that I would say most venues then go, cool, everyone go away and come up with a drink and come back to us. And that's definitely what we were doing. Instead of doing that, we said, cool, from here on out, we're going to meet every single week and we're going to rehash everybody's inspiration. And while we're doing that, because then we're constantly talking about it and feeding it into each other's heads, from that inspiration, we're going to figure out what's the one ingredient we can create that tells that story. So at this point in time, we're 4.5 months in and still no one's naming cocktails. They're quite literally banned from it. No one's naming cocktails. No one's getting behind the bar and just seeing it how it tastes with gin versus rum. You're creating an ingredient. You're working with Asker, who is our prep chef. And Asker was something where we realized that it was literally impossible to ask somebody, I'm going to get into facts and figures in a second, but it was impossible to ask a bartender working in a bar as brutal as Dandelyan to actually come in early and do a prep shift as well. So we hired a prep chef instead. Now Asker is this wonderful Scottish guy that smokes a fantastic amount of weed and was a bartender. Even did a bit of time of chefing, but I think like techno was more of his passion. So Asker comes in and Asker does like a 10 till 8 with us every day. Dandelyan has its own prep kitchen in the hotel, Asker and one other person, and we created a prep chef position. And in creating that prep chef position, it meant that when someone created an ingredient, they weren't going downstairs again and just throwing shit in a pot. They were going through the filter of me and Ryan and Aiden and Lorenzo and then going to Asker and being like, I've been told I should move in this direction. And what that allowed us to do was to make sure that Asker could develop recipes that were scalable. Because if you create the number one selling cocktail on a Dandelyan menu, that drink in Dandelyan will sell more units than Heineken, the cheapest beer in the hotel, sells in the entire building. You'll do over 25,000 serves of your cocktail in a year, minimum. So you can't create a syrup that takes a day and a half to produce, because Asker's just gonna go fucking nuts on us all. So and this was what we were learning as we were going through. So from there you get your ingredient, right? And you've got your ingredient and you're good. And then you're allowed to start making drinks. But we're very, very clear about the fact it's not just seeing what works and throwing stuff in. We don't allocate budget for it, so you literally can't do it. You will get a reprimand. So it is about sitting down and being like, so what do I want this drink to achieve? How am I going to serve it? At this point in time, we're encouraging people to research different vessels that they might like it served in. How are their byproducts going to feed back into a different element of the drink? Are we going to be able to dehydrate the pulp into a crisp? Can we bring that over into we use our boozeless section. That mostly works off working with byproducts that come from the other cocktails. So we're getting all this, and then at the 6.5 month mark, we should be getting close to nailing the drink. Then we start talking about names. And then at the 7.5 month mark, everything's done. Because if you do want to print a menu like this, and because everybody likes to steal them, that means you have to print 5,000 to 10,000 of the fuckers. And that means, and this menu will be in place for a year as well. And it has to go to the graphic designer. So it's not about having your drink ready the day before you open. You're not afforded that opportunity. 6 weeks before the menu even launches, you need to be done and dusted. And while you're doing this as well, you're still working 5, 10 to 12 hour shifts a week. So like 4 shifts a week is considered part-time in Britain. 5 shifts a week or you're not a full-time worker. So like all these people are already in 60-hour weeks, and this is done outside of that time. About doing
this work,
the creative side of it all?
considering like what the work.
Yeah. We were just really, really honest. We don't tend to hire part-time people because we want people that are fully committed. We don't hire ambassadors. We don't hire aspiring actors that are just looking to make a bit of coin on the side. If you're coming to work for us, we're honest about how brutal it is. And we just tell you that from the beginning. There's something else, I'll touch on it later with culture, but in the first meeting I'll ever have with someone, I'll encourage them to let them know that within 18 months to 2 years, I expect them to quit and move on elsewhere. Because we have no interest in holding on to somebody and just ruining the rest of their career. Quite the opposite, I'd rather them come to me and say, I'm thinking about quitting, where do you think I should go? And 9 times out of 10, I've been part of helping that person move on to their next job, wherever it may be. It avoids anyone thinking that they might be poaching our staff. It means other owners just feel comfortable calling us up and being like, hey, where's this person at right now? And I'll be honest, I'll be like, I actually think next week when I go for a coffee with them, they'll quit. Or, hey, can you give me 6 more months? And they'll be like, yeah, sweet, no worries at all. But it is just about, we make no excuses for how intense it is, though we are constantly trying to fix it and reshape it to be more of a work-life balance. But the attitude towards hospitality in the UK is rather specific. I've put this on a very large screen in a talk before, but if you could consider a Venn diagram for 1 second, and you have Australia, where you have a phenomenal hourly rate, but little to no tipping culture. But I'm talking like $25 an hour minimum, and if you work in like a corporate position and on a Sunday, you could be on as much as $40 an hour. So you've got Australia here, phenomenal hourly rate. And then you've got North America, wonderful tipping culture, but very questionable hourly rate. The UK is that pissy little sliver in the middle where you've got a shit hourly rate and shit tipping culture. I do believe it's one of the biggest reasons that Britain produces some of the best bartenders in the world. Because the only reason you're doing it is because you love it. There's no financial end to it all. A head bartender at Dandelyan would be struggling to clear 75,000 Canadian at a push. And that's in the most expensive city in the world.
Yeah, twice the cost of living.
Yep.
Twice the cost of living.
Yeah. It's like people that are actively full-time in hospitality in the UK, they just live and breathe it. And so a lot of people don't push back in that manner. Though I do remember when we hired Kelsey, she was like, what the fuck is this? It was like, it's what we do. It's, yeah, I don't really know how else to kind of follow on from that. But that is kind of how it goes. So we take this reverse pyramid scheme, we get people making drinks, and then they've found their glassware, and then we've got it named, and then we launch the event. But the reason we hang our heads on our hats on our menus so much is because our culture is built around them. Because, oh, let's go, oh, thank you. Our culture is built around the menus. To the point where I was chatting with Gord beforehand, and Andrew, and we were talking about the fact that one of the biggest reasons I'm so proud of this menu is at any point in time there'll be, on these white menus I'm talking about, predominantly right now, there'll be 24 drinks on each of those menus. And at least 25% of those 24 drinks on any given occasion will be created by either floor service staff or hostess staff that do not even know how to make you a martini. And that was what we struck on with this creative process meant that it doesn't matter whether you can perfect a Japanese hard shake. If you are creative, if you are inspired by the things around you, we will work with you to help you get a drink on the menu. Jess Morgan, who has been with us now almost since the beginning. She started in the restaurant across in the hotel and then came over with her partner Jack. Jess had the highest selling drink in 2017. Jess is not a bartender. She'll tell you that. She's watching it right now. Jess, you know you're not a bartender. I'm not sure I've actually ever seen her jigger in my life. But we put a creative process in place that enabled everyone to participate. And that's what I started realizing was that everything comes from culture, and culture is about participation. Not about forced participation, but finding participation that your staff actually want to be involved in. So alongside of that, we started developing this menu, and then we launched the menu, and there was this kind of weird phase after the menu launched where nobody had seen each other in 2 weeks. Because we were used to getting together every Wednesday, 2 p.m. It still happens now, every single week. But it had become this thing where every Wednesday we sat down for an hour and a half and we shot the shit. And if we only did 45 minutes of creative work, most people sat there and talked anyway the whole time anyway. So we realized that we just kept, after we launched that third menu and had this culture building and had this creative process in place, we just kept the meeting. And it sounds like the dumbest thing in the world to say, sure, weekly staff meetings, yeah. We weren't doing it. We were giving all of our staff no reason to be in the same room together except for the fact that unless they were working together. And just by that one simple step of being like, hey, maybe we could all meet up and talk about what inspires us and what makes us want to be bartenders. And that really got us cooking on this culture side of things. That really got us moving and flying along at, I think, a fantastic rate. We very quickly caught on to the fact that a lot of our working bartenders were better bartenders than Ryan or I were. And that is to say that Dandelyan's an incredibly busy bar, and to work there, these people were fast. Like, it's still to this day, I'm constantly amazed every day with it all. And so there was really nothing that we could teach him about the importance of double jiggering or why we batch or anything like that they weren't already doing every day. So we started doing other training sessions with him. It turned out that most of the staff wanted to grow their online presence but had done zero social media training or ever even read a fucking article about it. So we did a Wednesday where we did a social media training, and that was it. And everyone got together and that kind of thing. I did one where another thing I was unaware of, a lot of the staff, we operate a rotating system where anyone that's of the skill set and of the personality and of the desire to go and represent Dandelyan, they just let it become known to management, and then whenever trips come up, we rotate through the staff. It just seemed to be the fairest way to do it. Whereas it was like, hey, you get this trip, blah, 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 blah. And it would always be one of them with Ryan or myself, or that kind of thing. So we realized that everyone was quite excited by this, but most of our staff were shit scared about standing up in front of crowds and talking. And when they first mentioned this to me, I'm like, you fucking kidding me? You're bartenders, like 5 nights a week. You're literally in front of a